Hello and welcome to The Vessel. This is our first official episode on healing and growth. I would like to start off by telling you how excited I am that we can collaborate on this project together. This is a subject that you have fully immersed yourself in, and so why don't you give us a brief intro into who you are and what you stand for.
Thank you. My name is Alexa. By day, like many of you, I am a friend, a sister, employee, daughter, person, human, lover. By default, I'm a nurturer, confident, a light worker, alchemist. I really have stepped into the role of, it's important to me to make myself feel good and those around me. Those around me being the beautiful city of Kalamazoo. I have been here all 25 years of my life so far, and have met many friends along the way, Sierra being one of those. We've been friends since about 18, sharing many experiences since right out of high school, but as we have grown as women, we've really gotten close in the last 2 years of life, and so I'm so happy to be here because I think it's important to take note of in life when things change and you grow and you ebb and you flow, you tend to shed fear and falsities and gravitate towards things that honor truth and love. And, my time and my experience with Sierra as a friend and now as a partner in this is just getting started.
Alexa has written a beautiful poem that I would be honored to have her share with us.
It is titled From the Shadows. From the lowest point, my darkest days, I couldn't pinpoint the why, but by the grit of the dirt under my nails, I rose. Like the sun again, after a tumultuous storm. Like a lotus blooming from beneath muddy waters, I rose. At a time when I could not grasp reality by the face, when I didn't know what would remain once the dust settled around me, I rose. I stayed for the fight. I sat in the rubbish. Still, I rose. Oftentimes alone, often it was heavy, but each time I rose. It took every ounce of hope one shattered heart could gather, and I used every last piece of it to drive the croak from within my knees, and I rose. And baggage lifted, and dirt fell away. Layer by layer, I rose. I stood there in unfamiliar territory, but I recognized a glimmer in the distance. And then I remembered just how good the light felt upon my scorned skin. With all I could, I clung to the warmth until I found my feet and that light again, and I used it to fuel the fire within me. You see, once I found the light again, not only did I let it in, I let it break me right open. Now both the sun and my heart shine again. I still couldn't tell you exactly what remains, as dust shifts continuously every day. But what I can tell you I haven't found is every shadow that I am not. And now that the tone is set, let's sail.
Thank you, Alexa. That is beautiful. I would love to know when you wrote that and what inspired you. What part in your life were you at in this moment when you put words into paper?
So I started writing, journaling, poetry ever since, I'd say, about last January. So it's been a year. And this probably came in the following fall. I was experiencing, some lower points in my life and in my own personal perspectives. And so I was carrying things emotionally. And the way that I now transcribe that out is I write it, and it helps me process. It helps me to find the silver lining in even the dreary times.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I agree that writing is a good and healthy way to get your emotions and your feelings out into a physical realm. Like you have said, we've touched on that a little bit. I would like to start off with, what was your family dynamic like growing up?
I had both my parents in the picture and little sister as well. We were very family oriented, did a lot of things together. My parents were very devoted, putting food on the table and providing for us and showing up to work and showing up for our activities. My parents were realists, and I was always assured that I was taken care of. Things were taken care of, and I felt provided for and protected, and I think that's why I am instilled so much of those same virtues in myself, and I am prepared now for my own capacities.
Throughout the years of knowing you, I have always seen how close-knit of a family that you have and how supportive your mom and your sister are in your journey, and in everything that you do, they seem to be your cheerleaders.
I grew up blessed to have a good relationship with my mom and my sister, and we have all kind of favored like the faithful response and perspective. I'd say, we're emotional people and we're conscious people, and my parents were very, like virtuous and fundamental, and so all of those things combined within our family dynamic really just made us all well-rounded people, and the energy was just easy exchange between us.
So what is one specific virtue that you hold on to specifically that has brought you here today, and what was the turning point for you?
I believe gratitude is really refining that and strengthening that is a very valuable tool. Growing up, I had the fundamental belief that I was rich in the right ways. I knew I had more to be grateful for, and that was a sediment and a stepping stone to how I am grateful for the things in my life today. Just being able, to look for the benefit and look for the positive and hold closer to faith and love more than any other feeling first. I think the turning point for me came in my early high school years. I think in the same time frame that you are figuring out who you are is the same time where you've got so much space for influence, and it's easy to be pulled a bunch of different directions and take a lot of things in while you're trying to make sense of it all. So I think somewhere along the journey, I put more weight and hope into like love and other feelings and hope more than I did in the truth of what I was experiencing and receiving. So whether that was friendships or relationships that didn't serve me, I kind of started to lose myself when I held on tighter to those situations or those people that weren't serving me more than I was choosing what did serve me. And ultimately, that type of continuous behavior had a spiraling effect.
I'm really glad that you touched base on that, because we all have love in some way, shape, or form, whether that's a relationship, a family member, a friendship that has really blinded us in some way, shape, or form. We've all been hurt by love, and it's always a learning experience in whatever situation that you find yourself in. So can you just touch base a little bit on what that spiraling effect did to you and how you overcame it?
So as I mentioned, I believe I was operating to a point where I had more weight and hope and love that was guiding me stronger than the truth and honor I saw. And I think that those things should obviously go hand in hand, but only when a healthy balance is present. I believe that there were always the right intentions, but sometimes life serves you evil and ugly disguised as beauty to teach you a capacity that you haven't yet known, but might be very necessary. So even though I experienced things that were challenging and were not so pretty at the time, inevitably I think they were crucial and necessary to be the catalyst for where I am now. And at the time of my life, what that came to fruition in form of was a relationship, a toxic relationship that I ended up experiencing domestic violence.
Domestic violence is such a scary and uncomfortable topic to talk about, so I appreciate your transparency when you speak on it and being authentic to yourself. As shockingly as it sounds, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence. How does that make you feel?
At the time I was experiencing this, not only was it challenging, but even more so challenging because I chose to go about it in a way that was behind closed doors. And so dealing with that came in 2 parts, because the first part was accepting it in the truth of which it was in my life. And the second part was when it became a truth to that which is of my life and, my day-to-day and the community and the people I shared it with, and even all the actions that fell in between. Ultimately, looking back on my darkest days, I think, it's brought me to the point today that has taught me what is valuable and what is principle along the way. What better way to authentically solidify your foundation until you've experienced being shaken to your core? Only then do you realize where you're standing and whether or not you like what that looks like when you're there.
So I know for myself, when I tell my story of healing and when I share my experience of similar situations, it is not only liberating for myself, but speaking on it out loud has helped me make conclusions that I don't think I would have been able to make until I shared that with someone else who had struggled with the same thing and had maybe a similar perspective that could help me navigate those emotions. How do you feel about that?
I think that there's a stigma that being vulnerable stems from a place of weakness. But I think the amount of truth and accountability that have to pair with being aware and being vulnerable, that is really priceless. And I think that there's strength to be found in being vulnerable, because it says, look at me honestly for where I was when I was down, and look at where I've come, and here's how I did so, if you would like to do the same. And that type of unifying effect is beyond liberating, and eventually everything connects and we're all so interconnected. So your big piece of the puzzle could be a minor piece that they're missing in someone else's perspective, and vice versa. So being able to share in like-mindedness and overall experience, I think definitely helps you, but also helps the people around you and all of the eavesdroppers in between.
So do you believe that you found that profound perspective during the fall or the climb? And how does that contribute to your breakthrough?
I definitely think it came in a combination of the both. When you're stripped down and defeated and feeling in the dark or in the depths, when you've reached your breaking point, which is, different in every individual, and you don't even know often how different until you're there experiencing it. But I hit my breaking point when I finally accepted the truth, that what I deserved was outside of how I was currently living and being in that moment. I think the ironic thing, though, is, the breakthrough after rock bottom came when your beliefs are challenged beyond recognition. So you don't recognize the place that you're in or why you feel that way. But what you do know enough of is that you have to do different. You have to do more. You have to do better. You just know that the tastes aren't satisfactory at the current moment. And so, ultimately you have control to redefine the things that you don't like. Looking back at it, though, overall, I think I found the most assurance after the fact in the climb. Once you have your moment of truth, and you realize that, I was in this place in my existence when it wasn't enough, and I knew I deserved more. I just didn't know what that meant yet. So I was tired of the war within and started demanding peace everywhere else and asking for answers in its place. And in doing so, I was diligent in my actions to deliver back to myself, my heart, and my mind, one of which I know I deserved. I was still navigating unfamiliar territory.
I feel like during the healing process, you have a choice to make on whether you're going to be intentional with every decision that you make, the personal development that you take part in, if you're seeking out help and direction because you know you deserve something more. And that takes a lot of endurance and personal accountability to be able to face the ugliness that you've experienced, the ugliness that you've experienced within yourself, and being able to make the decision that I am no longer going to serve people and behaviors that are not well suited for the best version of myself. For me, during this time, it really showed me how to have integrity and how to love who I was, even when it wasn't accepted by other people. Being able to share your truth, even when you know it makes the room uncomfortable. Creating boundaries and safe places within your own heart and soul that you never waver from. And when those boundaries are crossed, you know to walk away. Because when you know better, you do better. And then ultimately, everything else in your life follows suit. With that being said, if you could sit down and have a conversation with your younger self, what would you tell her?
I think looking back, I should have, listened to my heart in the moments where it sank into my stomach with doubt or despair. I should have known when my heart beat faster, but it wasn't a positive butterfly. Like, there's certain moments where you just feel it. And I think that ultimately love is divine and it is powerful, not because it is controlling, but because it is liberating beyond comprehension. I think, love, life, whether that be what you give to the people around you or back to yourself, it should feel like the sun on your skin. It should feel like twirling to your favorite song or your favorite food. It isn't simple, but the foundation and the fundament that flourishes it really is. So I think when you meet yourself with that amount of grace and honesty, that life will, like you said, just respond by replicating. The universe listens to your every waning thought. And so I got more intentional and choose wisely. I think I would tell my younger self, if I could have a dialogue, it'd be probably priceless. Honestly, I don't even know if she would listen. You're only capable of experiencing that to which the level you're willing to honor and feel. And that's the funny thing about the journey that we're destined for, is even in the ugly parts, at their necessary time, as they're shaping you, how else would you know what to appreciate when it's good if you didn't know what it felt like while in the opposite? I think I would tell my younger self, no matter what, to hold faith and hold truth closer than any other feeling. I wish I would have spent a little less time questioning the past or doubting the present and more time just simply appreciating, aligning with truth, authenticity, passion, love, and light, remaining open and being guided by what is right, ultimately is the way to be overwhelmed with satisfaction and salvation.
Wow.
When I stepped away from dishonest intentions and actions, dishonest situations, dishonest people, although at the time was challenging and more than anything lonely, it proved to be the most personally beneficial in the long run. And looking back, I asked myself, what was I so afraid of? Why was I so afraid to lose that which was never fully in my corner to begin with?
What do your relationships model now that you have a new set of expectations, a new perspective on life, a new love for yourself? How do your friendships, relationships benefit from you having this perspective? And what do you appreciate about the relationships that you've been able to grow after the devastation you experienced early on in life?
of experiences and memories that replay with me today, ultimately they symbolize more good than bad, because if it wasn't for the hell that I lived through, would I know so soundly the value of peace today? If I hadn't spent so many days neglecting kindness and truth, would I know difference that they make now? If it wasn't for all the times of undeservingly bad, how deep would my appreciation for all that is good run currently in this moment? And that has become an irreplaceable piece of who I am and how I operate today. I choose by honoring what is best for my highest, healthiest, happiest self. That doesn't necessarily mean that perfection exists. I'm just as human as the person next to me. But it means that my awareness of those virtues means most to me. So my thoughts and my actions correlate. I think with the power of healing came a stronger sense of accountability over my life, a new level of oneness with choice, and ultimately my relationships and the people around me, they started to mirror that same type of virtuous for me. So they were based on love and devotion and authenticity and truth, because that's the same things I was giving myself. And so the world responded by saying yes, and abundantly so, matching the frequency that I was giving out. That is when you are the sous chef of your divine experience, trusting that no matter how it comes, it will be for you, and it will be for...
I am enlightened after every conversation that I have with you, Alexa. You have so much knowledge, and you just took life by your bare hands and molded and shaped it into exactly what you imagined for yourself. And I hope that after listening to this, everyone can just be more intentional in the choices that they make and love everyone despite circumstance or season. Thank you for everything that you are. Thank you for being so brave and courageous and speaking so eloquently on something that is very uncomfortable to talk about. And I hope that we can really just reach the world and the community and let everyone know that you are not alone and you don't have to live in isolation. You do have conscious choices to obtain your highest self.
Amen, absolutely. I believe the same force that pulls for our each individual in existence is what guides our experiences and souls in life along the way. And with that comes a set of skills and tools and perspectives, powers and lessons that other wandering souls are here to absorb and exchange. And ultimately, I think that's the interconnected beauty of it all and reason for its purpose. The good, the bad, the ugly, the beauty and the strength, everything that comes in between. When we find vulnerability and community and unity, that's when things immensify. And it wasn't until I started speaking out did I realize the power that my truth could hold. So my wish is to try honoring it within yourself, within the community around you, and see how the power of love and light will resonate and carry tenfold for you too.